for having me here today. My name is Lisa Kiris. I'm a senior health educator for the health education department in the Fresno service area. That's half of my job, and the other half of my job, I'm the medical weight management program manager. So I play two roles in the Department of Health Education and weight loss management for our Fresno service area. I'm here today to talk about just an overview of health. Has a little mind-body connection to it. It has, well, basically everything we do is a mind-body connection. And so I'm going to kind of just hop around a lot on a variety of health topics as well as just good living principles, so to speak. Anytime you need to, if I'm rambling on and you have a question or would like to add something in, please stop me, and I appreciate the interaction. So anyhow, as you see with this, looking at an overview of healthy living, and this was promoted to you as mind-body, I'm going to start with giving you a little background of the history of the mind-body interconnectedness. Note when you hear those two words, mind-body, you usually don't hear the and placed in there, and there's a reason for that. Now, centuries back, in fact, I think it's as far back as the 16th century, we have documentation of scholars talking about how the mind and the body work together, and that's pretty obvious that it is such, because here we're in this one unit as our body and our minds form together. However, it's kind of funny that for many centuries, we looked at mind-body as being mind and body, separate entities. But these scholars back in the 16th century had writings on where they believed people who had mental problems, or could be as simple as something as anxiety or depression. I say as simple as because it's very treatable. And please note, 1 out of every 3 to 5 people suffer from some sort of stress-related disorder, so it's perfectly normal. But anyhow, these scholars back in the 16th century had writings that these people who suffered from mental issues also might have been experiencing physical pain. And then these folks who had some sort of physical pain but it might have been the first issue, but then later on the mind followed, and now they had some sort of mental discomfort. So they were dissed as they were nuts. And so time went on, and when we got to modern day times, it stayed separate. So in the 1800s, if you were deemed having a mental disorder, you would have been here in the Central Valley of California, shipped up to Stockton to the first insane asylum in the western United States. However, if you were suffering from something physical, you would have been sent to a hospital or to a physician. Now, for many years, in modern medicine days, we still kept that concept of keeping them separate. However, in about the past 30 years, we have started to really pull those two terms back together, mind and body. And we have a full series of classes that support mind-body health. And it goes hand in hand. We know that there's people who suffer from anxiety and depression or other kinds of stress-related disorders that they'll say, I have a pain here, let's say, I have a pain here. And they'll go x-ray and MRIs and do all a battery of tests, and nothing's there, but the pain is real. So whatever it is that the mind is doing, the body is affected, and vice versa. Now, during the era of when we kept them totally separate, we did advance in our modern medicine did advance. Our surgical techniques, our medications, and our treatments did. So there was a positive correlation, but now we know that when we're treating a person, we're not just treating them for a physical symptom, we're treating them as a holistic being. Their minds, how are their minds being affected? How are their emotions being affected by this physical condition, and vice versa? And so anyways, now that's where we stand. So if you're being treated at a hospital or at your medical provider's office, if they're not treating you in that holistic way, note that there are programs out there that do help support the interconnectedness of our minds and our bodies. So with that said, kind of putting that as the ground floor, now let's dig into healthy living and what's it really look like? Because healthy for one person might be a little different for somebody else, even though the principles of healthy are really pretty simple. It's just we've gotten kind of pushed in alternate directions, just how our world works, basically. So what I mean by that, well, first off, here I am coming in here again, because I've been coming out here quite a bit in the past year, out here to tell you, you better stop smoking, you better take your vitamins, you better exercise, you better eat better, you better sleep more, you better lose weight, you better relax. Okay? That's pretty much the messages that we're out here sitting. But when you look at her face, that's exactly how that feels when you've got several things that we need to improve upon. So let's take a step back and see why we are such an unhealthy society and what can we do to make our world a much healthier place to be in so that we have better physical as well as mental health. So here in the United States, we've got so many health conditions going on. We're such a smart country, but why are we so unhealthy? We know what to do, but why don't we do it? And so there's a lot of research going on in the Center for Disease Control, National Institute of Health. All those large organizations are continually looking at what's going on in our world that's causing our health conditions to be so poor. And of course, can you guess what the number one issue is that's contributing to our poor health conditions? I'm only going to go into 4. There's about 12, but I'm going to go into 4. What's the number one thing? Yes, sir.
Addiction to computers and cell phones.
That's there. That's absolutely there. That's a close link to what I'm getting at. So keep that in mind. What do those computers and those cell phones and all of those things, what are they causing us not to do? There you go. So right now, our number one issue is getting people to move more. And that's definitely a contributor to that. So what's number 2? What would you guess is number 2?
Diet.
What you're consuming, the foods that we're consuming. Getting into 3. Can you guess? Stress is 4, which I think stress should go up to the top, and that's my personal opinion, but I'll get there in a moment. So I'll give it to you for sake of time. It's the different types of addictions or of substance abuses, whether it's alcohol, tobacco, any of that. So now you look at that stress, because I'm glad you brought up stress. So stress being down number 4, what's our number one excuse for not exercising? Time. Got too much to do, and tired, all of that. Hence stress. Number 2, and I'm going to show a slide here in a little bit, how we're eating. It's easier to go and get fast food. Sometimes it's cheaper. And then, of course, 3, if somebody's stressed, using the substance is to combat those negative feelings associated with it, getting out of that headspace. But and then, so bottom line, we've got to kind of keep those 4 things in mind when we're moving through our world, trying to make healthy choices. Or one of the other impacting the other thing. So stress is definitely a huge kicker on all of that. So kind of just setting that as a ground floor. Now let's take a look at how we have changed. How have we gotten to the place we're in where we've got so many health conditions? Now granted, we are hunters and gatherers by nature, and we're farmers, we're ranchers, and if you look at the commonality here of all these photos is being outside, movement in space, and eating foods that come from the ground or foods that had a mother as a source. Now, if you're not eating the food that came from the ground or one that had a mother as a source and your great-great-grandma didn't probably consume it either, it's been created by somebody who's has a white lab coat, and they're putting in artificial colorings, processed, foods. The foods are so processed, as well as all of the artificial ingredients and you can't read the names. Those are all indicators that, maybe possibly stay away, but those things are actually altering us. You also think about the movement that was involved. Nobody had to go join a gym to get movement back then. You had to have stamina to be able to possibly go to those mountains right there and kill that deer and drag it back down here into the valley. That took some stamina, as well as, look at these ladies here sitting here picking, we're working for it. We don't do that anymore. Now we are just straight consumers. And I said to the morning group, I said, and even this is getting antiquated. Because now, and I told them this, I disclosed this, I have found Grubhub and DoorDash. Have you used it yet? Too convenient. Don't. You can actually get, depending on the restaurants that participate, you can make good choices. But the bottom line is what I'm getting at is we don't have to move much anymore to get everything that we need. So even shopping, how many people have diverted from Christmas shopping, walking the malls, to doing it online? We've just made things so convenient that it's actually made us unhealthier at the same time, and also created more time for us to spend at work and looking at our electronic gadgets. Anyways, just kind of, putting all the pieces together of how we've gotten to this point. But guess what? Our bodies and our minds, they still think we should be hunting and gathering. And so now we're suffering from the residual effects of our convenient and our smart, as being so darn smart, that we're able to create these conveniences for us. So let's take another look at how things have changed. Granted, that's a common fast food photo right there. And it looks pretty darn good, doesn't it? Because it is. Because it does taste good, because there's so much sodium and sugar and all of that in there. And it's so fast to go get it. So much faster than having to go fire up the grill to barbecue a hamburger or cut those. I actually did with my daughter, cut up some potatoes a few weeks back while we were on vacation, and we baked our French fries. But you know how much time that took? So anyhow, the way we eat is just absurd. Our gaming, it used to be go outside. You couldn't get the kids to come in. And now it's just the opposite. Granted, in the past few weeks with the air quality, it's a good thing we had something to do inside, but besides that, we're not moving enough, and our activities have changed so drastically. And unless your child is, or yourself, if you're a gamer yourself, unless you're going to go be a pilot, that's about they've seen some good come out of the hand-eye coordination with it, and like they say, the pilots, it helps with the pilots with the simulators, using those simulators, and those could be types of games, but outside of that, it's not doing much else for us. That's good. And then there's the blue screen effect, talking about, the different, we're constantly looking at this light, and that's impacting our brains. And of course, our bodies follow with that, hence that mind-body connection. Look at coffee. I love to talk about the coffee changes, because I guess I talk about the cup and saucer. I used to collect them. And my grandma, she had all these beautiful cups and saucers. But think about those. When you had a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, you couldn't be running around, running through a drive-through and grabbing those. That was sitting down, talking possibly to somebody, and just having a moment of quiet. We don't do that anymore. Now we're running through these drive-thrus, getting these monstrosities that could be thousands of calories. And that's more calories than we should be consuming in a day. And we're consuming it in a liquid beverage. And then our communication style. More people text and do electronic communication than actual verbal communication. And that's even altering us as well. And so, there's that air kid that did that this morning. It was like, why is everything shaking? Anyways, and then we've got a remote. Now even that's definitely antiquated, because now here we go on our phones. We can do anything, So it's kind of crazy how we've changed, but we're so darn smart. And then this one, I just said enough says on this one. Yeah. Go figure. We take escalators to go work out. What the heck with the stairs right next to it? You gotta be kidding me. So, going back to being hunters and gatherers, they were moving. Well, because of all of this, we have more medications. We have more medical procedures going on. We have people like me who work in the realm of weight management, and that's a billion-dollar industry. So anyhow, how can we take this and kind of get back to basics so that we can better our health? So if you go back to looking at, I'm going to flip back a couple of slides here. Back to that one. That one right there. That's a lot to take in, but that's what we're dealing with at Kaiser Permanente and health education on a daily basis, helping people get back to basics of life. So it's pretty convoluted when somebody's telling you to do all this, that makes that person feel pretty overwhelmed. So, go back to where I was. I just wanted to revert back to that. So anyhow, moving on, the best approach to take are baby steps. Now, simple changes can happen pretty rapidly. Big changes, they're kind of hard to attain because they may be too far out. So the more that we kind of start breaking those habits down, or breaking down the habits we need to adopt that are healthier, and eliminating the habits that aren't so good, they take baby steps in it. If you expect to change all of that at once, you're really setting oneself up for failure. So that's what we're going to look at in these upcoming slides. Just some simple ways to live a better life and getting back to those basics of life. So these are kind of some fun slides that I like to show now and then because it kind of gets off of the negative connotation of you better stop doing this and start doing that. So anyhow, let's look at the pursuit of happiness. Our day really begins by how we think. And I'm not going to lie, I told the group this morning, I'm decompressing from it. I had something that kind of got to me this morning when I got to work. And it's, as I'm now calming down from it, it really was a ridiculous thought process that caused me to get myself in an F4. Nobody knew I was in the F4, but internally I was. And now that I've been here now for a couple hours and decompressed from it, my attitude's changed. But anyways, the bottom line is we choose to have an unhealthy attitude, or a happy attitude, or a sad attitude. That's a choice. So, because we all have the opportunity to dig into our lives and find something that's good. Because if we're sitting right here, we've got something really good going on. We're alive, we're breathing, we're healthy, we're safe, and there's many people out there who aren't. So we can always find something positive to think about when we wake up in the morning. Anybody do a gratitude journal? They're quite popular right now. Or write out what you're thankful for. You journal yourself. How's that make you feel?
Yeah.
Does it help you?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, they say that 21 days, you make or break a habit in 21 days. That can be true or not true, depending on what the habit is you're trying to break. It might be longer. However, they do say that with the gratitude journals, those who take time each day, spend just a few minutes writing down what they're thankful for, in about 21 days, they tend to be shifting their negative thinking to more positive thinking. And a negative thinker, and this is older statistics, but it came from the Midwest Center for Stress and Anxiety, and they said in this one, it was a workshop that came with it. You could either go to a live workshop or you could purchase the different CDs or cassettes at the time when I found this out. A negative thinker thinks approximately 500 negative thoughts in a day. That's a lot of negativity, and it can be as minuscule as, oh, I'm kind of chilly, but instead of thinking, well, you go outside and you're going to be in 105-degree heat, kind of thing. But the bottom line is those negative thoughts do impact us. So choose choose happy, Participate in life. There's so many people who choose to kind of close the door to the world because it feels safer. Now, granted, if it's, there's people who are introverts, there's people who are extroverts, and the introverts may need that time to be alone, but it's when somebody is choosing to not participate in a planned pleasant activity for whatever the reason might be, are they doing any service to themselves, especially if it's something that is to get you out of the house. So, like I mentioned this morning, I have these kayaks. I have 3 kayaks, and I haven't been real diligent in using them the past few summers. And they're really a simple pleasure of life. Sure, when I bought them, they were a big expense, but if you ever rent kayaks, you can buy one, and, you can rent about 4 times, and then your kayak is paid for. So anyways, I have these sitting in my garage, and I could have easily abandoned not using, but I kind of fought myself this weekend, got a friend, and we went out in the river. And we spent a few hours, and I'll tell you, she even said, boy, did I need this. Well, we both needed it. And I can't tell you how the mood improves. So participate in life. Sometimes it's, and I have to say, like the pitfall to it is, I've got to get the pads out. I've got to put it up on top of the roof. I've got to make sure it's secure. Chances are I'm going to have to stop and tighten it up if I didn't tighten it good. So that's a good pattern of negative thinking that could keep somebody from going out and doing it, but I'm glad I did because it did change my outlook that day. So anyways, make sure you're not letting life pass you by. Take those small moments that you can to enjoy, which is going to be a world of help for our mental state as well as our physical being. Indulge in moderation in everything, except make sure you're laughing as much as you want. Laughter, there's so much research on laughter and in positive psychology. There's studies on the science of happiness. And so there are all these simple tips are real facts that can help somebody benefit their lives in the best way. And so anyhow, don't forget that laugh. Get out those old movies, get with those people that might make your belly laugh, and enjoy. And so anyways, moving on to consuming something, and Cindy gave you something with dark chocolate in there. We're talking about moderation. So if you ever need that little sweet bit, or you want to make your brain light up, the pleasure centers of your brain, and you want your heart to work well, have a little dark chocolate. It's good for you. It's good for you. So don't diss the small things in life. There's a book, and it's called French Women Don't Get Fat, and it's a great comparison of life in France versus life in America. It's this woman was the CEO of this large champagne this manufacturing, and she had an office in both France and an office in America. And in this book, she compares apples for apples with us and them. And like, for instance, they have their chocolate, but their chocolate is pure, and it's not these manufactured things with a bunch of junk in it. And they're having their glass of wine, but it's not a cheap gallon jug wine. It's a good bottle, and they're sharing with others. So anyways, indulge, just find that moderation, and don't forget that dark chocolate. Anyhow, looking at flex time. So how many of you engage in stretching on a daily basis? Awesome. Anybody else? Well, then you need to stretch. So stand on up. Stand on up. Just quick. First off, when you stand, go to your natural, comfortable posture, which is probably, like me, it's not very ergonomically correct. So first things first, put your shoulders back and down your spine. Just relax them down there. Suck in the ab just a little bit, not much, just a little bit, and just breathe. Make sure you're kind of visualize that your ear, shoulder, and hip are in alignment. Now take a deep breath in. Exhale it out. Do that again, big breath, but this time keep those arms up there. And then as you exhale, I want you to pinch your shoulder blades together, contracting those shoulder blades and slide them down the spine. Just slowly slide it down that spine. And just take a moment just to roll those shoulders when you're done. And then just drop that ear to your shoulder. Drop it to your chest, your chin to your chest, and your ear to the other side. And go back again. Lift that head back up to center. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, and that was probably about 30 seconds. Go ahead and have a seat. How do you feel? Isn't it amazing? I don't know about you, but just doing that little bit changes a lot. So don't forget to get up and stretch. And also, looking at our body, when we're not moving it, we are losing it, so to speak. So anyhow, thinking of a rubber band, and if you need a rubber band and you haven't used one for a while, and it's been sitting in that drawer, and you go and you grab it, and you go to stretch it out, and it pops. You know how that goes. Now, if you think about that rubber band, if each day you were gently making it stretch, giving it a little bit of moisture, it's going to have a longer life. Well, that's kind of the same thing with our muscles. When we don't stretch, that's when we go to make that sudden turn or that sneeze, and it's, oh, I just pulled this muscle. So we've got to use it, otherwise it's going to just pop like that rubber band. And something else, when we are doing that gentle movement like that, and I say moisturize it, our joints have these fluid-filled sacs in there. And as we move our body, it actually releases that synovial fluid into our joints. That's natural lubrication. In the good old Wizard of Oz, when the Tin Man was frozen out there and Dorothy was there with the oil can, well, this is our natural oil can, but it doesn't release unless we work it. So keep in mind movement, stretching, and it also, besides improving our bodies, it also improves our mind, because it does a lot of times diminish those stress-related conditions. So laughter. We know that there's so much research within the science of happiness, and laughter is linked to that in every way, shape, or form. It boosts the immune system, and that's huge. I mean, because if we don't have a good immune system, we don't have much at all with a good life. And so it also reduces, of course, stress and tension. It eases anxiety. It'll diffuse a panic attack almost right off the bat if somebody can recognize that they need to get up and move when they are in that state of overwhelming panic feelings. And it relieves anger as well as it lifts depression. So anytime we can find something to make us laugh, indulge in it. And also be the one to provide laughter. That's also a pretty fun thing to do. So no pulling the plug. So we've already targeted the blue screen effect. So life's not a spectator sport. Bottom line, if movement is not a for now thing, it's a for good thing. Many people adopt exercise when they're trying to lose weight. But we, as I've already pointed out, we are meant to move. And even though our society has changed around us, it's still, our bodies think that we're hunters and gatherers. And all of these diseases and obesity epidemic that we've got going on is a product from basically where our smart brains taking us to these levels where we don't have to be that busy. And so, or we don't have to do that much movement. And so anyways, we know right now that we're all guilty of the phone. I created an 8-week curriculum here last year that the CART program, Center for Advanced Research and Technology here in Fresno and Clovis, they're biomed senior students, facilitated this curriculum to underserved first graders. One of the topics was on plug and play. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to see a ripple effect. We wanted to see not only the first graders benefiting from the knowledge that these high schoolers were giving them about health education. We also wanted to see if we could improve the health of the high schoolers as well as the teachers and try to have that full ripple effect go on to the home and whatnot. What was very interesting when we came to the Unplug and Play, one of the students, and then the rest of them chimed in, said, I feel guilty portraying or presenting this to these little kids because I don't do it myself. So it to limit the screen time kind of thing. So it did have that ripple effect. So we definitely need to talk more about reducing our screen time as well as, and trying to make an attempt for ourselves, besides our children, to reduce as well. And so granted, it's so important to reduce our risk of obesity, diabetes, heart disease, stroke awareness, or stroke prevention. So much can go on from getting moving instead of being sedentary. Of course, move more by adding those steps into the day, working in the garden, parking further away, putting on music and dancing, whatever it is that gets you going, do it. Just do it so that you're benefiting physically as well as mentally, and getting away from that blue screen so that our brains adjust to real life instead of that faux life that we've created for ourselves. Anyhow, tap that power from within. So those folks who practice in meditation, prayer, journaling, or talking to those people who might be very good listeners and providing good feedback, they tend to do better in their world with their happiness level as well as their stress levels. The meditation, granted, that's just even, that can be complex, but it can be pretty simple as well. It can be just a few minutes of just closing your eyes and thinking about something pleasurable, or it could be going out and doing yoga or Tai Chi, something like that. We have a podcast series that is free for all members and non-members through kp.org, and Kaiser is contracted with Belarus Napperstack, who is an expert in guided imagery, worldwide expert. She travels, people hire her, and she travels around the world to help train them so that potentially if they're going for surgery or maybe some kind of procedure that needs some type of numbing types of medications, that she trains their brain so that they can go without. So, granted, these are most likely folks who can't go under anesthesia for long periods of time, or what do not do well with any kind of painkillers, type thing. But the thing is that she succeeds at helping these people. So think of what power we have up here and what it can do for our bodies as well. So, those folks who tend to pray, typically they're dreaming as well. They're not, I don't mean dreaming per se, but they're planning something greater than what they've got going right now. And it could be almost a bit of goal setting. I want to do this, but and it's also a time for quiet and reflection. So the journaling is something very powerful in that, getting the thoughts out of your head and onto the paper. And then, of course, talking whenever somebody is engaging in conversation with somebody who's listening well to them, they're benefiting as well emotionally and spiritually. And so don't forget to do those types of activities if they feel good to you. And like I stated with meditation, it doesn't have to be complex. It can be just sitting there, just quiet moment, enjoying just fresh air and maybe a flower, literally. So it doesn't have to take up a lot of time or a lot of energy in somebody's life, but it does so much for us. And I gave this little example earlier on, this kind of links to sleep as well. But if you have sleep issues, and typically you're finding that when you're not falling asleep, you've got all these thoughts coursing through your mind. Well, I want you to think of this. This was one of the activities that those high schoolers did with these first graders in that HEART program, that integration that we did. They took a jar, filled it with water, and put glitter in it. And think of that glitter as your thoughts. And of course, at times, if you shake it up, that your thoughts are all over the place. That glitter would be all over that jar. But then if you kind of calm down and let them settle, they settle down to the bottom. The thoughts are still there, but they're not impacting you like they are when we're all agitated with them and letting them cycle in our brain. So anyhow, these are ways to kind of make that glitter settle to the bottom, make those thoughts not go away, but make them so they're not so powerful in impacting our lives. Moving along, so bottom line, these things can help clear your mind and help you escape the hustle and bustle of busy days. And so going into the good old sleep. Sleep causes people to have a reduction if lack of sleep causes people to have a reduction in energy. That's pretty obvious, right? But it can also lead to weight gain. And what happens when we're not sleeping well, we've got a hormone called ghrelin. It comes from our digestive tract. It tells the brain to feed or not feed. It tells us to stop feeding when we're full. The problem with lack of sleep is it impacts the ghrelin, and the ghrelin release is not accurate. So therefore, if you're extra tired, you might be extra hungry. Note that that might not be physical hunger. It might be just an incorrect message being sent from our gut to our brain. And so you gotta kind of listen to yourself, self-awareness. But if you are having trouble sleeping, you're not alone. There's so many people suffering. And we do have sleep resources at Kaiser Permanente for members as well as non-members. You can attend our classes, some of them, not all of them. Some might be for members only, but for the most part, most of the healthy living classes, which I would be speaking about today, are ones that are open to the community, even so you don't have to be a member to join us. But besides that, it decreases our mental health. You know, I mean, not only are we impacted by our emotional health, we don't think well. And it doesn't have to be like that. Sleep is a habit, and sometimes we just need to retrain ourselves. People who work graveyards and, odd hours like that, or their hours shift from day to day, they're going to have real trouble with sleep. But for those of us who have a pretty good schedule, if you can schedule your sleep, your body will start to adapt to that. Your mind and body will start to adapt to that scheduled sleep plan, and you can sleep better. However, there's other tips and tricks, but that's where you have to come to the class to get those. Anyhow, also one thing that we know about people who have lack of sleep, they have a higher risk for car accidents. And it's not necessarily, falling asleep at the wheel. Of course, that would be a big problem with a car accident, but it's reaction time too. And it's also lack of being able to, be kind of watching your surroundings and being proactive if somebody is speeding and maybe not going to stop at that stoplight or whatnot. So note that good sleep, it impacts even the people who are sleeping good in realms such as this. So it's important to make sure that we have good sleep hygiene. Know your BMI. Your BMI is not the end-all be-all of weight management. However, it does give us an indication as to where we're at. Now, not necessarily saying is the smaller body the healthier body, because there has been studies shown that a person who is in the higher realms of their body mass index, yet they're fit, we found that they're actually healthier than somebody in their normal body weight who's unfit. So size doesn't always indicate the health of somebody's being. However, the body mass index does help to guide us to seeing where we need to be or getting closer towards that. But keep in mind though, it's really that it's how you can move the body in space. Can you move it? If you have a larger body, can you move it with ease? If you can't, then that's an indication it's a hindrance. But there's many people who are living in a body who might be carrying a little extra weight and are perfectly healthy. So it's individual for all of us what our weight needs to be at. But if, once again, it's impacting your life, make sure you're getting some help and some weight management resources. So moving along, getting outside. Get outside. Not only is getting outside good for movement and for having that fresh air, but of course, it's gonna give you more energy. It's gonna fight stress, it's gonna boost that immune system, it's gonna get you out into the elements. So we have some great places right around here that we can hit the trail, or even just get outside and go to Woodward Park and just stroll around there. Just get outside and move. And so there it goes again. Every journey begins with that first step. Except for I heard that you guys get in these mega amounts of steps here anyway, so I'm preaching to the choir. So who gets in their 10,000 a day? Yay! A few of you. That's awesome. So keep it up, because you think those hunters and gatherers got in way more than 10,000 steps. 10,000 is actually kind of a minimum. So anyways, moving on to the sunshine. Of course, this is kind of a catch-22. You got to get out into the sunshine to help impact our serotonin, which is the neurotransmitter that makes us feel calm. And it's also helps affect our dopamine, which makes us feel happy. But we have to be careful because of the ultraviolet rays. So we got to make sure we are limiting our exposure, but we need to get some exposure. So go figure. And then we put the sunscreen on, and it's protecting us. But on the other hand, it might be impacting our vitamin D absorption. So make sure you're checking to see that your vitamin D is in balance. It's not too hard to get it back in balance. You can take a vitamin D supplement and spend a little more time out in the sun. But once again, make sure keeping that sunscreen on. But vitamin D deficiency is related to depression. It's related to brittle bones, and other things. And we here in the Central Valley are in the zone where we are affected by seasonal affective disorder. And that's, if you're not familiar with the term, that's when the sun is further away from the earth and we're getting less light. We're also not getting that stimulus of those neurotransmitters, which are making us feel better. So here's that balance in there. You got to just find that happy place. Don't forget to get outside, because these aren't very good they're not good for us at all. And we tend to spend too much time in these types of lighted situations. So find that balance of getting the exposure, not too much exposure, and make sure you're getting your skin exams. And really, really, really important, because people, I get these wrinkles. Well, most of the time the wrinkles are occurring. I mean, sure, age is going to do it to a certain extent, but a lot of times it's that person is dehydrated. And all you have to do is take a look at a plant that's looking like that. That's what your skin is doing. And the funny thing is we'll probably go get this water before we'll go get this water. We'll go fill that dog's dish up when it's empty, probably before we'll go get our own glass of water. So hydrate, 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 hydrate. It's a miracle. And they also say that, people who suffer from back pain, a lot of times it's the dehydration is what they're causing the problem. So it never hurts to try a good old big glass of water before taking that aspirin or the ibuprofen or whatnot. So flu season's right around the corner. In a few weeks, our flu shots will be here. So make sure you are getting your flu shots first off. But also the simple things: wash those hands often. Try to get out, here I just did it, get out of the habit of touching our faces. And when we are eating healthy, that immune system is built up, and therefore if the immune system's up, we can fight off those germs, as well as when our bodies are moving, it also helps to boost that immune system, which will help us fight those flus. Because flu, it used to be a simple thing, but now it's gotten to be so complex. We never used to hear about all these deaths years back, but now flu's associated with so many deaths. And of course, a lot of times what happens is somebody gets a flu, especially when it's upper respiratory, and then it turns into a secondary bacterial infection. Then the person has to go on antibiotics, and then that messes up our flora in our body, our good bacteria. And so it's this catch-22 we get, the cycle that we're on. So if we take just some healthy living tips, that can take us a long ways to fighting off those infections and viruses, yes.
How come, talk about vaccine with that, just curious, how come the meningitis vaccine is recommended more?
I'm not entirely sure, but because when somebody gets it, it's,
Yeah, because I had a friend who almost died from it.
me, yes. I'm not sure, I don't have the
There's not a lot
answer.
of education about it,
I'm
but
not,
you
yeah.
have a headache for a while, and keep taking aspirin or whatever,
Not
that's
knowing.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have the answer to that, but now you've piqued my interest, so I will go and look into that.
Yeah.
But you know who has a very, if you wanna hear a story of somebody that was severely impacted by meningitis, was that Amy Purdy. And she's the gal who, she's lost her legs, she was on Dancing with the Stars, came in number 2.
Last year's Fresno.
She came to the women's conference last year. Yeah, her story is very impactful. So, yeah, definitely look into those meningitis shots, that's for sure. But I don't have the answer to why they don't push it like this. Because I know at Kaiser, we sure push the flu shots. Sure, and there's controversy there, you know, and I can't go into the controversy, you know, I mean, I get my flu shot because I feel that I'm being in a clinical environment with all those germs that I need that extra protection, and plus if you don't, at Kaiser, they feel so strongly about it, you have to wear a mask during the flu season, and so these little badges, these little stickers right here, that indicates I got my flu shot last year. So anyways, you know, and immunizations you've got to kind of tread lightly on because of the controversies around it. But, you know, anyhow, I wish I had that answer, but I don't.
Debbie, I had all my kids get vaccinated before they went to college. Oh, that's not recommended.
That's so odd.
Yeah.
I mean, my kids are grown and they're out of college now, so it's
Very odd. People are living in proximity or working in proximity, that's when it happens.
yeah, I don't know.
Weird.
Yeah, it is weird. It's funny how, I don't know, you know, a lot of times things like with the flu, it might be associated with less people coming into the, you know, if they get the flu shot, they're not gonna come into the hospital. On top of that, if they're not coming into the hospital, they're not contaminating more people, you know, so, but with the meningitis, I have no clue why they don't. But now you, like I said, you piqued my interest, now I've gotta go see why aren't we pushing that. And so anyhow, moving off of that, moving on to hearing. Now we're finding that we have more hearing loss going on. And hence the fact that people are walking around with headphones in their ears all the time, playing their music. That exposure to that loud sound all the time is not good for our ears, not good for our brains either. I mean, to a certain extent, of course, music is therapeutic. But when you're getting into the levels of that volume being up and there's got these things shoved right in your ears, penetrating that eardrum, you know, it's time to, you know, take them out and listen to the natural sounds around us. But we really are pushing getting hearing tests. And so please don't diss that, you know, that person may be selective hearing. They may have an actual hearing problem. Now, as we age though, it's normal to lose tune. It's sound, like there's certain sounds that when we're younger in childbearing years, that we're more attuned to. However, as we get older, we're less likely, we might lose that heightened ability for that, but that's normal progression. So it's not that we're looking for, it's when there's really clearly a problem. And then, you know, if you have somebody who's constantly with their headphones in doing that, you know, listening a lot, and then don't appear to be hearing you, there might be a real issue. So it takes hardly anything at all to go to the audiologist and have your hearing checked. But just be careful of those loud noises. Of course, this is an obvious one. Eat fruits and vegetables, 5 servings, minimal. Most people having a serving would be considered to be about a half cup of something. So get the variety of colors. The more colors you get in your your food plan, the more nutrients you're getting. And seeing we're getting close to time, do we have the one, this one is short.
Yeah,
It's
short.
This one's short-er. So I'm gonna end with this little, relief stress preview.
Don't mess this up, Lisa.